Dan Carnat is the CEO and co-founder of Fiera Cosmetics, a mid-8-figure cosmetics brand that has learned a lot of hard lessons in a lot of areas that I've talked a lot about in this show. Everything from product sourcing and challenges related to operations to incrementality to price testing and everything in between. Really cool story of a brand that is doing really, really well, founded in 2020 in the mid-8 figures. And you're gonna learn a lot from Dan and his journey with Fiera Cosmetics. Expect particularly to learn in this episode about exactly the things I just talked about price testing gone wrong, some mistakes made there. Expect to learn in this episode about incrementality testing and how that's shaping up in the business now, including thinking about other channels besides just the standard ones that we're considering. Let's talk about affiliate, some of that kind of stuff, and about supply chain operations and the kind of mistakes that get made in a business with complex details related to color and all of that. Let's get into it with Dan Carnat from Fiera Cosmetics. Dan, thanks so much for joining me today. I want to jump right in and hear about your price testing stories. You have told me that you guys, in your success, have made serious mistakes around price testing. I have been talking about price testing for actually a long time on this podcast. And so I want to hear what you did wrong. So I'm going to skip the tell us all about Fiera. It's a cosmetics brand. People can look it up. And let's just get right into it. Tell people about price testing and your journey with that and what you've learned along the way.
Sure. Yeah, definitely lots of hard lessons, probably where some of these grays have come from.
Yeah. And you have small kids, you told me. So
yes.
Yeah. My kids are basically the same age as yours. That's where some of mine have come from too. Yeah.
I like to say, by the way, the number one dad thing's regional. So no competition here. I'll take the Toronto area.
Yeah.
So price testing side, it's a big lever that we all have when we're selling anything. And one of the complicated pieces of price is there's the initial conversion rate, there's the initial kind of profit metrics, and then there's the long-term value of the customer and how it affects reorder rates. And one of the things that we learned is a $40 concealer customer is not the same person as a $16 concealer customer, and their buying behavior and their reorder habits are totally different. So first, coming to look at it, we're like, okay, how are we going to measure it? And we have a fairly consistent traffic cost. And we're like profit per visitor. The product has a cost, shipping has a cost, fulfillment, all those other costs that we factored in. And conversion rate obviously changes. If I sell something for $1 or if I sell it for 30, you're going to have a totally different conversion rate. So we started calculating the profit, and we started just split testing and running through all these different prices. And, I actually have a neighbor who has a data science company, and he advises Brookfield on a ton of their acquisitions, and he does gas station pricing. So what amount can you charge for regular gas versus premium, depending on the time of day, depending on what side of the road you're on, and always optimizing based on where you'll lose people. So him and I would run together, and I would always pick his brain on all this testing we're doing too. And one of the complicated things, he's like, ideally in a perfect world, you're going to want 3 rebuild cycles and if I have a concealer where someone's, reordering every 2.5 months, then I need in a perfect world, I need 7.5 months of data to really start getting strong understanding of what is the lifetime value of these customers and how are they reordering. And in the real world, when you have a website, when you have Amazon, when you have all these things, you can't just have all these different prices everywhere. It would cause a disaster, makes angry customers. It just doesn't functionally work. And so you kind of have to compress it, and you're getting statistical significance. I mean, we sell a lot of concealer. I think the year we started doing this price testing, we sold a concealer every 24 seconds in 2023. And, so we're selling a lot of concealer, we're getting a lot of data, and the price keeps going lower and lower and lower. And we're looking at this, and then our sales start spiking. All of a sudden, we're in the top 3 selling concealers on Amazon, and we're into this, and meanwhile, we kind of have to keep lowering. At some point we locked in this price. We decided to go with it. We started massively increasing our orders because now our concealer volume is spiking. We're selling so much concealer. And as soon as we moved that split test live, like literally as soon, one of the complicated things about split testing in general is that it's not like everything else is constant. You have these algorithms that are deciding what traffic you get. And based on all these signals they're getting, which now they're getting different signals. It's different buyers. It's way more signals. And so all of a sudden your traffic starts changing. And all of a sudden our acquisition costs started going up and the value of the customer started going down. And we also thought at the time, like, if I give someone this great value, I'm selling them this thing I used to sell for a lot more. I'm making way smaller margins on the product side, but we're giving people greater value, so the reorder rate should be higher. And it was just the exact opposite. And I've actually done this testing across multiple products, also with my new concealer that we just relaunched. And I just have, every time I've ever tested this, the lower our product costs get, the lower our sale prices get, the lower the reorder rates get, which I just found to be a really strange thing initially to wrap my head around.
I think it's such a fascinating story. It's the reason I wanted to start there, because I have this basic theory, which is that like price has been picked basically out of thin air by a lot of brands. And they've made this decision that has this huge impact on their business and on their margin profile and all these things. But they've made the decision almost totally irrationally. Like it's just sort of randomly pick a number almost, and maybe they're looking at competitors a little bit or whatever, but something like that. And so what you're describing is that once you start trying to make the decision more rationally, you actually realize how complicated it really is because of all of the extenuating circumstances. You mentioned two of them at least there, one of them being the changing profile of your traffic based on the price, and another one being the changing LTV of your customer based on the price, and all of that within this framework where you say you can't just sit and wait 8 months for the actual answer. But one of my takeaways here is that among other implications, it's one of the reasons why I really try to push people in some way towards like, don't make a decision on this too fast, even if you do go and test it, because like you said, like the stat sig details are hard. There's all kinds of like changing profile. If you can sort of limit the variables in your split test, that's obviously better for the reasons that you've just talked about, et cetera. It just is really complicated. And there is this argument that like excellent operational work in a company on the marketing side will often include split testing. And in fact, one of the things I would say that you guys ended up doing, if I'm just repeating back the story, is you ended up getting a huge piece of knowledge by paying attention to it, which is that it's actually much better for your business. It costs you a lot of money to get that knowledge, right? But it's actually much better for your business to sell a $40 concealer than a $16 concealer. And you were never going to know that objectively without making the mistakes that you made. So in one respect, like it sort of worked out in the end, although I'm sure it was very painful and you got some gray hairs because of it. But you end up with this really critical piece of knowledge. And that I think probably does shape, I'm assuming, and I'll let you speak to this, shape how you then approach almost everything about the marketing profile of your business afterwards. It's like, okay, this is the kind of customer we want. This is the kind of customer we don't care about as much. We'll take them if they come in, but we're not going to go after them in the same way. So that means that you got to think about influencer differently. You got to think about channel differently. You got to think about all these things because now you're trying to appeal to a certain kind of customer, your brand, all of those kinds of things, So I love like the process of thinking hard about this sort of thing ends up creating downstream benefits that I think are really, really important. But often in sort of counterintuitive ways, right? That's at least the way I would interpret the story that you just told.
Yeah, and I'd say the other thing that's really important for people to think through at the outset is to do the math on what those reorders are actually worth. Because there's the cost of the reorder, which is your product and your shipping and all if you have retargeting costs associated with it. And then if you cut your concealer, as the example, from $40 to $20, that reorder, you have $20 less room. And yet you still have the same fulfillment costs. You still have the same kind of retargeting costs. You still have everything else. So you're making so much less money on all those reorders that it really has to be worth it that you're making extra money somewhere else to compensate for that.
Yeah. There is no substitute in a consumer product business for like deeply understanding unit economics. It just is no substitute for it. It matters a lot. In fact, I would say it for any business. Like I'm building an agency and we're thinking really hard about like the unit economics and the gross margin profile of a customer for us versus our services. And just, yeah, short term, long term, all of it. I think it's there is no substitute for it. Okay, so you ended up landing on a spot where you're back to $40. Is that right, or whatever the price is?
We sold so much concealer at a lower price point, which was a really bad move for our business. And we had to stagger it back. What's that? Sorry?
When was this? What was the timeline of this? Just so I can understand sort of the shape of the business.
I think we probably did that in 2023. We kind of started price
so it's a couple years,
and then we ended up bringing it down, and then we kind of sold at big scale through the beginning of 2024, and we were acquiring these lower cost customers, we'll say. And then we just started building it back up, and kind of in increments, and then we did some consumer testing to put together a new concealer that we could bring in, a more premium concealer at a higher price to kind of go after the type of customers and where we want to position the business.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry. So you incrementally came back over that time, and the net result now is what exactly?
So we have our old concealer that's running at 32 because we didn't want to alienate all the lower cost customers now and raise the price too much. And then we have a new concealer we sell at 45.
Oh, interesting. So you just introduced a new product at a higher level. That's really interesting. How has that done?
It's doing well. It's relatively new. One of the things we do in our business, we have a process called reality testing. And what we like to do is get a lot of feedback from our customers. And so in introducing anything new, what we'll do is we'll find a big cohort of customers who love our product, like your 5-star review people, and we'll go find your 1-star review people, and we'll recruit both of them. And we'll give them like free gift certificates or whatever to come and complete these product surveys for us. And so the idea into going into any project like that is what can we do to keep all the characteristics about our product that the people who love it love, while simultaneously addressing what people don't like. And you can't keep everyone happy in the real world, but you can move things in positive directions. And so we do a lot of that testing on our end, and that's something we did with that product to try and I guess bring up our overall star rating on it and introduce a more premium concealer that we could then sell at a higher price.
And that's what you did for the $46 version of it?
45, yeah.
Or 45, yeah. So what's the so what were the improvements? I'm curious, like what kind of feedback, how precise, how specific did the feedback get? I think people can learn from a process like this, and this is the reason I'm asking. So what kind of feedback did you end up getting, and how did that actually affect the product?
So one of the things is our original concealer, it's called our luxury concealer, is a thicker product. And in general, like our products and our brand is made for mature women and mature skin, right? Which has some different characteristics of making makeup for a 20-year-old, let's say. And how certain products can crease with more mature skin or show up in different ways that people don't like. So one of the things is that thickness meant that like when people were to use it, they had to warm it up a bit to put it on. And there were certain things that if we made it just a bit more blendable, but we kept the kind of coverage that we had in our original one, and we kept like some of the attributes that people loved, and finding that perfect balance. Or as perfect as we could get it was kind of our goal. And so, yeah, we summarized a ton of reviews, and then we recruited all the customers, and we kind of briefed the chemists, and we got everyone together. We're like, here's our exact objectives. Here's exactly what people love about it. Here's exactly what people don't like. How do we kind of find the right balance?
Did you send the new version of it to those same customers?
Yeah, well, they approved the new version in the end. So sometimes when we do reality testing, we'll do our best to come up with, when we bring it to that point, it's because internally we've decided, hey, we have this really great product. And then they tell us if we're right or wrong. And if they tell us we're wrong, we'll go back and we'll do the whole thing again. We'll do it again until they tell us we're right. So right now we have, and we've really scaled this up in our business because we're thinking long-term in how we grow our company. So we have over 20 active products in development right now, and they're all in different phases, because when you do it right, it takes a really long time. So, I mean, first of all, like, you have to find the right packaging. And when you think you've found the right packaging, you might send it to the lab and you're like, I want to make a 35 milliliter, whatever. And they go and they fill it up and they're like, no, this is only going to fit 33. So just the process of like finding the right container and then getting the branded samples and making sure the colors match and making sure this and this and this. And then you go into like compatibility and stability and line trials and all these things where you might think this product is great, and then you put it in your container and it starts separating in a month. And what they do is they put it in these like ovens, basically, to accelerate how fast it'll age, because then you can do kind of accelerated stability testing. And then if people aren't liking the product for whatever reason in your reality testing, like maybe it's too this, it's too that, they don't like the scent, you're going back and forth and back and forth. And then you're redoing all stability. And there's like ocular testing and this. And so the layers of it. And if you don't do certain testing, so for example, we have a PO with QVC for January. Now, QVC says, hey, if anything is going on your face, you need ocular testing. Okay, so I need to make sure that if you're putting my concealer on your face, it's not going to irritate your eyes. And if you get a complaint on Amazon, and there's like this like HRIP testing where it's basically you're testing skin sensitivity. If you don't have that done, because you could launch on Amazon and not have it done, and you get one complaint, you're gone. And then the process to go through that, it takes months. So your products just won't be listed on Amazon for months until you get that it's not irritating skin, and you can say, dermatologist approved on your product. But yeah, there's so many hard lessons.
I just cannot tell you enough good things about my friends at More Staffing. They've been a long-time sponsor of this podcast, and it is honestly not too much to say that everything I touch in business in some ways currently is being served, or I'm even going deeper with More Staffing as the way that I get business done. Like I'm doing, at the level of the podcast, at the level of the agency, at the level of the e-commerce business I'm starting, all of it in some ways is touching and is interacting with More Staffing, where they are hiring, helping me identify, recruit, train, onboard, coach incredible talent from the Philippines for my businesses. And there's a couple of reasons why More Staffing is different than other staffing agencies, including in the Philippines, that you've heard of. The first is that they were actually born out of a US-based e-commerce business where they actually really deeply understand the world of e-commerce, including every part of it. Like, they came from supply chain and operations backgrounds, but now they've been working with me for a long time. So they understand the marketing, growth, graphic design, video editing side, all of those things. That's one part of it. So they know the needs of e-commerce businesses specifically. They're not just an all-purpose, generally background recruiting firm, though they can place a lot of positions. But secondly, I think the way they think about the way Filipino talent ought to exist in an e-commerce business is right, which is, instead of just looking for the cheapest possible talent that you can add to your business, what if instead you go look towards the middle and even upper end of the market in the Philippines, find the best talent that you possibly can for like manager and up-level positions, and watch how far your dollars go to get incredible talent in your business. By providing an incredible opportunity to a talented Filipino, you are going to get great talent that then you retain for a very long time, because it is an outsized opportunity for the person in the Philippines, and your dollars go farther so you can reach to the top of the market there. I just can't possibly say enough good things about More Staffing. If you are looking to hire any position in your business, here's what I would tell you. You may not find the right person in the Philippines. It's hard to place talent in a lot of things, but you also might, and you owe it to yourself to get on a call with my friends at More Staffing. Go to morestaffing.co/AF. Tell them I sent you, morestaffing.co/AF, and see if it is the right fit for you, if there's somebody that you can place. At least look at the resumes, at least go check, at least check the price and see if it'll work. They also have a 1-year guarantee. If you hire somebody from the Philippines for your business and they do not last for a year, then they will help you replace that person for free. Hiring is inexact. It is, as good as they are, is inexact. It does happen, though rarely. And so they give you that guarantee on it, which is really awesome. Morestaffing.co/AF. Get started with them today. Did you guys have this mentality from the beginning of the business? Like, when you launched in 2020, were you this meticulous about product development, and were you developing this many products? And or is this something you sort of a muscle that you generated over time? I'm really interested. I'm starting a brand on the side right now, and it will go on skin, though not on face. I don't think. And I'm thinking about this kind of thing. And one of the things that we're considering is like the sort of MVP version of the product, just to try it. Sort of like, is there anything here or not? And I've wrestled with this a lot. Like, part of me is like, I don't know if it's a real test if we don't like really make sure the product is exactly right. But then also you could just do that for forever. And like you said, it takes a very long time to get great data on this and great feedback on this. And so, yeah, I'm thinking about sort of for that early stage person, like, how has this developed for you guys over time in the business? Because at your stage now, if I'm thinking down the line and I'm like, I want to build a $200 million version of Fiera, or I don't know what your guys' goals are, but like if it's something like that, then it's like, this is exactly right, which is like, it's not just about like generating new Facebook ads that are going to make your business grow. It's about developing 20 new products that people are going to absolutely love, that you're going to have clarity unit economic profile. Like, this is like operational excellence, right? This is like how you actually build the thing that you want to build. But I'm curious, like, sort of how that has developed over the timeline of the business.
I think it's like anything, at least in my life, right? Whatever it is, you pick up running. You don't start as an excellent runner, right? Like when you first learned how to do media buying, you didn't start as an excellent media buyer. You make so many mistakes, right? And you learn from them. Hopefully you learn from them. And ideally what you do is you can try and recruit the smartest people you can find to help you do certain things. So certainly we made all kinds of mistakes. And I think one of the things that we've always been good at, though, is like understanding the limitations of our own knowledge and where we need the most help and what we're good at and what we're not. And for example, at some point, like, because the original packaging we had kind of done and it wasn't the prettiest packaging, and we're actually at the final stages of a rebrand, so you can actually see both our older and newer branding on our site still as we kind of work through the last of our older branded products. But one of the things we did is, I'm like, our internal team may be great at buying, ads on Meta, but we weren't seasoned professionals in creating packaging for, 60-year-old women. And so what we went and did is I found the people who grew the Origin brands under Estee Lauder, and one of them actually specifically did the whole study for all those brands globally on how they weren't meeting the needs of mature women. So from the writing on the packaging to the sensorial experience to what ingredients are in and how mature skin's different. And we went and found these like really exceptional people to help augment our team and worked with them to say, look, these are our goals. This is what we're trying to do. And then they, being from that world forever, brought in all these incredible relationships too, and, amazing chemists and labs to help work with us to develop what a lot of these new products are. But without question, we didn't just start that way. It became that way. We proved the concept first. Before Fiera even started, we had just sold some concealer. We ordered some concealer, sold some concealer, proved the concept, and went from there.
That makes sense. I like that running analogy quite a bit because I think it's sort of the way I've thought about it with this brand I'm starting is like, you know what, like no matter how perfect I try to get it, until you actually start going, you're just not going to do that. You need feedback, you need the bad reviews, you need all those things, and you learn over time. And the mistakes in an earlier stage of business don't compound too much actually, because it's really hard to make the product so bad that like you can't get out from under a few early bad reviews or whatever. I think we'll find out, I guess, but I think that's the case, if you're just sort of trying generally, but the idea that then you would just develop that muscle over more time, I think is really helpful. Let's actually talk about the operations and supply chain side of things. Wait, actually, I do have a running question for you first. You're a serious runner now? It sounds like.
No, I'd say I did it. I did my first and only marathon last year. And my body has. When we're done talking today, I'm going on a run with one of my brothers. But my body has since told me it does not like running that much, and so I've been listening. So I'm trying to keep up with cardio. But
yeah. One of my primary fitness goals in life is to never run a marathon. So far I'm doing great. So yeah.
It's a decent strategy. My body would agree that would have been a good goal.
Yeah. One of my other ones was to never do a cold plunge, but then my my business partner invited me to his house and he has a cold plunge. And so that one I didn't achieve. I ended up doing a cold plunge and it was dumb. I don't know why everybody's excited about it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be though. I want to talk about the operational supply chain side of things a little bit as well. What has been critical for you guys? I mean, you're talking about, it sounds like new product development. When I hear 20 products in development is a big part of it, right? And that's its own beast, the NPD, right? It's like there's all kinds of elements of that process, including sourcing, manufacturers, and like you said, you're starting to source the packaging manufacturers, and especially for something you're putting on your face, there's testing and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious to hear a little bit more, especially with the attention that you were talking about paying to unit economics, sort of like how, if there's anything you could say about how you've weighed out the various priorities in the supply chain process. On the one hand, there's one strategy that's sort of like test as many products as quick and fast as possible. It sounds like you guys want to be careful about that, even though you also have 20 going at a time, build a big pipeline. There's like a get to the MOQ, and then sort of optimize over time mentality. There's some people who are making all kinds of decisions about trading off something like net terms and cash management relative to unit cost. Some people have different priorities on those things and essentially financing the unit cost in different ways. So I'm just curious, again, as a company that's launching that many new products, and just by definition, a cosmetics brand, you've got little variations in colors and things like that are part of the process. Talk to me big picture about the way you guys have thought sort of strategically about your supply chain, and then maybe we can hone in on wherever you think you guys are great from there, because we haven't talked about this before. So I'm curious where your mind will go with this question. Sorry if that's too broad.
No, it's fine. So you're right. There's a lot there. Even when you look at an existing product and you take something like concealer, I have a shade of concealer. I have two shades where there's one that I sell 2,500 of this one shade for one that I sell of another. Like if you take my most popular and least popular shade. So if you think about inventory planning, right? And then let's say you're launching a new color, and meanwhile, nobody wants to make, 1,000 of something or 500 of something. Even if I'm ordering 300,000 units of concealer, the fact that I'm using 2,500 of one shade for one of another, right there, just like makes that one shade non-viable for most people to want to even make. But yeah, when you're launching any new product in general that has color, you don't know what the color split's going to be. So there's all kinds of complications around it. And based on who your audience is, you can kind of make some educated guesses as to what they use. Or you could even look, like, for example, on competitor brands, if they have the same kind of customers as you on Amazon, and try to figure out like what exactly they're selling per shade, what kind of shade ranges, to try and make a more educated guess as well. But in general, one of the things with a brand like this is the greatest value the brand has are the customers. Like it's not, our inventory, or it's not anything else. It's that over time we have built up a group of loyal customers because we take care of them. We have great customer service. We try our best to make sure that we're only selling great products that were made for them. It's why we go to such lengths to test our new products. And of course we get stuff wrong. And we're not perfect at it, but the problem from our lens, just quick launching stuff. So in general, what you could do, you could go take someone's off the shelf products, not make your own products, not develop anything, and just start testing things, selling things. In the context of trying to build value in a brand, you want to own formulas. You want to own your products. You want to create products, not just because there's manufacturers in the world that make products for lots of companies that all sell the exact same product with a different label. But if you're actually trying to create value in a brand, that's not the greatest route to go. And sometimes people will do that and customize it later. But we just felt like we can have a good enough product team at this point in our business that if you have enough in development and knowing they're going to take a long time and knowing you're going to have stability issues on this, or this packaging's not going to work, or whatever it is, we can still at a good cadence moving forward starting now. Like we've been doing this and it's taken a long time. We have a really good release cadence over the next 12, 24 months because we have built this pipeline now for so long leading up to this point. And the economics of keeping your customers happy, if I just start selling a ton of bad products, people aren't going to trust me anymore, right? And then when I launch something new, they're not going to want to buy it because they would think, like, I can't trust what these guys are selling. They're just putting any product out there. If we take our time with it, then when we do release a new product, then right away we can have a huge uptick. The margins, the customer acquisition costs are very high. Any brand that sells in Sephora, as an example, Sephora has taken 55 points off the top. Okay, so from the $100, there's 45 left. Now, of the 45, it's not just product costs. The company has to pay Sephora to advertise to the customers out of the 45 that it's in the store. Then you have to send people in to train the reps, right? Because someone's going to walk in and say, what moisturizer should I use, right? And they're going to say, oh, you got to try Fiera's. But the only way they would ever say that is if you train them to. So when you work it backwards, the margins in cosmetics, if you just looked at what's a product cost and what's it sell for, seem really high. But the only way you can capitalize on that from your existing customer base is if you maintain trust. And the only way to maintain trust is to make sure you're launching good products.
RICHPANEL promises to save you at least 30% on your software help desk bill when you switch from Gorgeous or Zendesk over to RICHPANEL. So just like right away, when you hear that, why would you not get on a call and think about switching over from one of those legacy tools over to RICHPANEL? Well, there could be a couple answers to that question. One of them is maybe you think cheaper means worse. And that is just wrong. RICHPANEL has incredible customer rating, customer feedback scores for customers who are using them, both in terms of their client base to them, as well as like those clients' customers back to the clients. And on top of that, like very small and very large businesses and everybody in between is finding that RICHPANEL works great for them. That's why huge businesses like Ridge and Pillowcase and Lomi are using RICHPANEL for their businesses. Those businesses are bigger than your business and it is good enough for them. And so it's not a problem of scalability or something like that. Maybe another reason you might not switch, right, is that it takes too long and that you're thinking like, it's going to be this huge job and I got to switch over my whole thing and retrain my whole team. RICHPANEL actually promises to get you transitioned to their tool in 2 weeks or less. They are well aware that you do not have time to waste. There are more important things for you and your team than just like endlessly trying to figure out how their customer service tool fits into your business. And so they make it fast and easy and they hold your hand and get your team trained through it. It's just one of those things where if you care about running your business really well, where you care about running lean operationally, where you care about having a great experience for your customers, where they also, like I said, see a 30% reduction in tickets because the customer self-help portal that RICHPANEL provides is so good. When you look at all those things together, and man, they've also told me, I was with their CEO, Amit, recently, and he was telling me about what their product roadmap is going to look like, some other really cool stuff coming down the pipe for them. When you just look at the whole package together, you should at least be considering it. Go to richpanel.com or follow the link in the show notes, richpanel.com, tell them I sent you and see if it's the right tool for you. I think it's going to be for a lot of brands. Go to richpanel.com, make the switch today. That is a really good answer to the question because what it ultimately does is it works backwards from where value in the business gets created. And what I hear you saying is value gets created with repeat purchases. That's where the value is in a cosmetics business. And that means that everything about your process ought to be about finding ways to generate that. And if you can do that, then you can have a really successful business. But to do that, the key is having great products. And it means you don't screw around with anything that's going to screw with that, because that is the thing where the business is, because there's so much in the way of upfront costs. When I think of your Sephora example, it's like, well, the thing that Sephora has, right, is reach. And so the reason you would possibly sell in to a company like Sephora, despite the margin profile you just described, is because that so many customers are shopping for cosmetics at Sephora that if you can get in and be successful there, what it will create is reach and repeat behavior. If I buy all my makeup at Sephora and I like Fiera, then it's going to probably be a break even or a loss net of all the costs for that customer to you guys, to Fiera, ultimately. On that first purchase. But if they're going to go back and rebuy it over and over time, then all those training costs up front, all that kind of stuff over time ends up working out just fine. And, ultimately paying 55 points of margin to Sephora is not that much different than paying Zuck, for the reach. So but in all of those things, it's this same calculation, which is you make all the money on the repeat purchases. And so designing your supply chain and optimization towards the value creation of the business is I think really good. And now that was the way I just retold your story. But before I move on to the next thing, let me just pause there and see if you want to actually correct the way I retold the story or add anything to that.
No. Look, I think it was a good summary of it. I think, look, you got to maximize the value of your customers, which means you sell them stuff they like, you take care of them, you don't betray their trust, you make sure you're fair to them, and you make them love your brand. So when you come out with something, they're excited to try it, they trust it, they'll tell their friends about it, and that's ultimately the biggest value you can build in a brand. I have one side lesson that I would caution people.
Please.
So we started this process. We started getting clever. Like, we started to think we were really smart when we were doing the rebranding. We're like, let's think of these smart names for every product. Okay. And so I said moisturizer, and I have trouble saying the word moisturizer now because we made a product called Moisture Wiser, and I mix them up all the time. But Moisture Wiser, we're like, that's such a smart name. We sell to mature women, like wisdom. Like, if you go into the brand story, it works great. We have this Moisture Wiser, and then I would start trademarking. I have so many trademarks in so many countries. Like, I could go on a side rant of trademarks and the wild trademark wars I've been in for different ones.
When we were emailing in prep for this, actually, you were saying, like, here are the things that we could talk about. You said trademarks and product names was on your list of things you could talk about. And I laughed to myself at that because it's like, I've done hundreds of interviews at this point. I've never had somebody bring that up as one of the things they could talk about, So, yeah.
Well, it's because I've been through so much. I'm sure. I went through a 2-year trademark battle to get the rights to use the Fiera trademark in Europe. That was a wild one, actually.
Crazy.
But anyway, you type Moisture Wiser into a search engine or into Amazon. What happens? It autocorrects, right? And so the worst
I didn't
idea.
even think about that. Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah.
Thought it was so smart. I'm like, this is the greatest name we've thought of. It was not.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, gosh, I love that. Man, I want to come back to actually the point, just one more thing about the retention question and the way you framed it, which is like you take care of your customers and you don't betray their trust. I have a little theory in my mind that I've sort of been kicking around, which is that let's get very broad, semi-philosophical here for a second, okay? Many people, if not most people, will basically assent to the idea that sort of love is the most important value in the world. And I mean that in a very personal way. Sometimes they mean that in terms of like, you got your number one dad sign, which is a little mark of your like kids' love for you and stuff. And it's like, I have small kids. It's the most powerful, wonderful thing. And not every relationship can be like with your relationship with your kids, right? Or your wife or something. But like the, this notion of like the importance of love in the world. I have had this little idea. Like, I wonder if more brands ought to think actively about not just like, how do I take care of my customers, but given the constraints of the relationship, which is a business and a customer. So it's not going to be like your relationship with your spouse or with your kids. Okay. But still, given that framework, what if brands sought actually to love their customers, as the way they thought about this, and to, I actually really like the phrase you said, to take care of them, or to care for them or whatever. Like, I wonder if that would not only, I'm sure, first of all, you sleep well at night, knowing that you guys are taking care of your customers and that you're not selling garbage to people. Like, it's very clear when you talk about this that you really care about that. And for me, at least, I like that feeling. I like that feeling of like doing work that I'm proud of. So it makes me feel good, which is good. But also, like, I actually wonder if that would be sort of business wise, would be like a strategically smart to actually really have your whole team ask that question, to go like, okay, we are at every step of the way going to really do our best to say, like, this is a human being on the other end of this transaction. I'm going to love them and care for them. Yeah, again, granting some limitations in the relationship, like something like that. So anyway, it's just like a little thing I've been kicking around, and your story there is like sort of confirms that idea to me a little bit. That this idea that would be like, we all sort of recognize that there'd be some value in the world if people behave that way, but maybe there's a way within the framework of this relationship to do that. I don't know.
Well, I like it, and I think the other thing, one of the things I like to say about performance marketing is like performance marketing at its core is performance listening. Like you're listening. Like you come up with you don't tell your customers what the best ad is or the best angle or the best whatever. They tell you.
It's really good.
You sit with your team, you find the smartest people you can, and you come up with all the best ideas you can, and you put it out to the world, and the world gives you data back, right? And that's how media buying works, and that's how CRO works, and that's how whatever works. But that's how companies work. And like, I just apply that, and we apply it internally to everything in a company. It's like, I'm not telling you what the best product is. That's the whole point of reality testing. It's like, you're going to tell me what the best product is, and I'm just going to listen to you. And I'm going to listen to you when you complain, and I'm going to listen to you when you're happy, and I'm going to listen to all the things that you tell me. And I'm not going to be like fixated in my mind on here's the outcome we have to get to. I'm just going to let you guide me there. And like, I'm going to sit around with the smartest people I can find. I'm going to try and plug all the gaps in my own knowledge with incredible people around me. And then I'm going to put it out there. And I'm just like water rolling down a maze. Like, you're telling me where I'm going, not me telling you. And I'm going to listen the whole way. And if I do that and I allow that to happen in every part of my company and allow people to challenge everything in our company, like always, like anyone who comes into our company, like always encouraged, like it doesn't matter whose idea it was. It doesn't matter who thought it up. Challenge everything all the time because it's the only way we'll ever be better.
That's good. Okay, I want to move to incrementality testing a little bit because you mentioned it again when we were sort of talking or emailing ahead of this interview, and it's such a hot topic right now. So, tell me what you guys have learned from some incrementality testing at the stage of business that you're in, which I think is part of the really interesting thing here. Mid 8 figures. What are the highlight takeaways from your guys' incrementality tests, and what are you still learning?
Well, I mean, to start with, I think we've learned that we have a lot more to learn. As the opener to that, it's tricky. It's interesting. Going back to the new concealer. So we did an incrementality test on Meta when we started running our new concealer, and we wanted to figure out the best price. So initially, we started doing some price testing, which was giving us the exact same results as the last one we did, and so we stopped. And what's really interesting is we weren't selling it anywhere else. It wasn't even on our website. We were only running off-site funnels to try and figure out what we should sell this for. And we were starting to do this incrementality testing. And running that, the halo effect of that running on Meta was increasing our Amazon sales, even without that product being on Amazon. So I think people were seeing that and then going and buying our old concealer or going and buying, other stuff. But it was just for a totally unrelated product. The halo effect I found of that one was really interesting.
If this is sort of too proprietary that you don't have to share it, but can you say what the halo effect was? And maybe the way to quantify it would be like, because this has been a question for me for a long time, and I've seen some tests and I've got some ideas around it. But if you generate $1 in revenue on your website, how many cents do you also get on Amazon with the incrementality test you're talking about?
I can't.
Again,
I'd be happy to share. What I'd say is this. Amazon represents about 20% of our total sales. Okay? Plus minus. Most of that is driven, like almost entirely driven from our paid ad strategy online to our site. And it's like all kind of halo going to Amazon. It's so heavily correlated. Like if I turned off our Meta spend, it just plummets.
And you have the added complication there of the fact that some of that Amazon revenue is repeat revenue, right? So exactly like how much of that is actually new customer off the back end of your Meta or YouTube spend or wherever you're spending, is its own question. But that 20% number, all other things being equal, is about what I usually see, especially for Meta heavy brands. And it's almost exactly where I sort of make the forecast adjustments for clients of mine, which is like, hey, if we spend a bunch more money on Meta here, here's the lift I expect on Amazon. If I'm just doing like a vibe incrementality test, sort of an unscientific approach to it. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it is really important for brands to get that straight who are selling on Amazon, because if you are only assigning credit to your website for your Meta spend in particular, first of all, you'll underrate your YouTube spend in particular. I know this is like a lot of incrementality studies have shown this, that sort of like YouTube has a higher halo effect on the Amazon for a bunch of reasons. But even for your Meta spend, first of all, if you add Amazon as a channel, it's very likely going to have both an added effect from Meta, but also some cannibalization. So you have to be able to measure both of those to see that there's incremental value creation, and then also some image. So you just got to know it's going to change the way things are going. And then you also have to think about it in terms of the true value your media spend is creating, which is like, if you only measure on the website, it's like, well, you should actually be recognizing, like, I don't know, maybe there's more ability to spend based off of Amazon. And again, in a business like yours, especially net of LTV, that is just worth considering. So I mean, that's my take on it. Would you add anything to that in terms of what you guys have learned from that?
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. Like, in attribution now is really complicated. And by channel, you really have to dive in. And other than doing incrementality tests, like we have triple whale. And the multi-touch attribution to us is like totally useless. Like, I can't take that data and make real decisions and trust them. The MMM results are better, and I feel like they're lining up with our intuition of what we think's happening in more places. And then when we start layering on the incrementality test, I feel like that's the only time we can truly understand what's really driving. And Meta's incrementality was actually higher than we were seeing, in triple whale versus we did a test with AppLove on our Axon now, and that was lower. We actually had to pull back that spend, although it's actually doing better for us again right now and picking back up. But just like understanding that multiplier of looking and being like, here's what the platform stats tells me. Here's what triple whale tells me. Here's incrementality is telling me, which I'm going to hold as my gold standard. So then, like, what multiplier basically am I, or subtraction or division, whatever, am I putting on platform stats and triple whale, and how am I going to look at this to try and make short-term decisions of how to, modify our spend? It's tricky.
I see almost no evidence that an MTA is valuable at all for brands. I think it's mostly misleading. I see mixed evidence to limited evidence that an MMM is very useful, and I think it's basically like, for me, I'm at a point. I mean, I've never really used attribution software, and I've sort of suggested others do the same. It's not a shot at any of the people building. Like, my sense of the triple whale Northbeam people, they're hardworking, really trying to serve their customers, all those things. But for me, it just seems like it was really a potentially useful tool in the iOS 14.5 aftershock, like in those early days where it was the only thing that could point you towards truth. But now I just don't. I think it's sort of like platform numbers, the bank account, and incrementality tests. And that's basically what your attribution stack is. And then almost anything in between there has a real chance of being misleading. And in fact, one of the problems with attribution tools, in my view, is that they have high conviction on the things they tell you, right? They spit out a number. And if that number's wrong, it becomes very hard for me mentally to shift away from it. I'm like, well, that's what the number says, even though everybody knows that's the case with the platform number. They all recognize that there's view attribution in there that's screwing things up. And you use 28-day click and Meta, like whatever. What about last click versus other things? It's just all of these questions. And so it's just like, whatever. People want a source of truth, but if the source of truth is like potentially lying to you, then it becomes a bigger problem. It's almost like your price testing story, where it's like you're seeing the profit per visitor go up and up and up. But actually, if that's telling you with a lot of conviction something that's wrong, it ends up being really costly. And so that's where I think the way you just framed up how to use all that stuff is good. Olivia Corey from House, incrementality tool a while back. So the way that they like to think about this is like the MMM creates the test, And then the incrementality test validates it basically. So the MMM ends up giving you the basics of like how to think about the test. I would say, because it'll be like, oh, here's a suggestion. The MMM is saying this is happening. Now that'll give you the next thing to test. My own view on this is that that's even probably still unnecessary, but that you could just sort of skip that and go straight to sort of just look at the channels and maybe the more complex. And if you guys get to 200 million, like I said, or something like that, then maybe this becomes something where, man, you just have to have those tools. But I think for the vast majority of brands, especially earlier stage than you guys are at, it's going to be a drain on your time and attention. So those are my words, not yours. You don't have to assent to all that, but yeah. Dan, we only got a couple minutes left. I'm curious if there's just any last thoughts. The way I always like to ask this question is any very top of mind things for you in your business that you think are helpful for people to hear, things that you're thinking about, or just like big lessons that you go, somebody listening to this running a business, this is the thing that I want to tell you that is the most, that will help you, that's most on my mind, or that we've learned the most over time. If not, it's okay. But
well, I mean, I think we covered like take care of your customers. I think that's a great starting point. You're saying what's like the biggest thing I would say to someone is that in the era that we're in right now, where it's so competitive to buy traffic, that's how you're going to live and die as a business, is by leaving a good impact with the people you sell to. Top of mind other things, I mean, like for us, we're always trying to diversify if you have a heavy table with one leg, right? If people's business is just living on Meta, that's one thing happens. And there's so many businesses that have been impacted because of that, right? You can't have single sources of failure like that. So, it's been a big thing we've been working on is just continuing to diversify our channels and, affiliate being one, because that's what a lot of my background was affiliate marketing. And so Fiera was all internal traffic basically for the lifetime of our business, until more recently when I was like, hey, let's prioritize the affiliate channel. And then understand incrementality ties into that too, because there's so many garbage affiliates out there. And I think that and when you look at that, there's different kinds of affiliates too, right? There's your impact style, has that kind of spread, but the older kind of performance-based affiliate world, there's big media buying and marketing teams that sit there and buy traffic to brands all day and do, tens of millions of dollars a month in sales, that if you have the right connections and can kind of get with those groups, it can become, and have pages that actually convert where people are willing to risk their own money sending traffic to your brand. It can be a great source of diversity.
Awesome. Well, that means that the next time you come on, we're going to have to do just an affiliate deep dive, because I think that's something that has been elusive to me with brands that I've worked with. It seems like it exists and is real and can make a bunch of money for brands, but I've never seen it really cracked in a business that I've worked in. So I would be grateful to learn from you on that. We'll just break down all the details. In the meantime, Dan, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. Is there anywhere at all that you want to send people to? Are you sharing thoughts anywhere on the internet, or are they just going to have to subscribe to my podcast and wait till you come back?
I think they're just going to have to wait till I've never even done a podcast before, so
Well, you did great. Thank you very much. This is awesome. Yeah, big shout out to my friend Sam Mendelson for connecting us. I was asking Sam from Workspace 6, which is sort of an occasional sponsor of the show. I was asking Sam, who are the people who are just killers, and he said Dan Carnat from Fiera. So I'm grateful that he connected us. This is a great conversation. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, if you notice there's a giant Andrew face in this episode, it is because I'm finally upgrading my camera, and I'm in the midst of sorting some things out, and I got a lens that's maybe a little too close. So we're going to see how we solve that in the future. Maybe we'll get a new lens. My office is not that big, so we'll see. Anyway, giant Andrew face for now. We'll see how long it lasts. Thanks so much for watching or listening today. I hope you do like this episode, comment on this episode, subscribe. I loved this conversation with Dan. Dan and I had not met before today. He was introduced by Sam Mendelson, as I said at the end of the show, and I really loved talking to him. I thought I learned a lot. Felt like I was stimulated in a lot of ways from that episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you have thoughts on it, please do comment, like I said, but also email me, podcast@ajfgrowth.com. If you're interested in working with AJF Growth at some point down the line, you can sign up to join our wait list. We're not taking any more clients through the end of this year right now. We'll go to ajfgrowth.com, drop me your name, drop me your information in the intake form there, and let me know what your business is looking like. I might have a recommendation for someone to work with, or I might be able to say, hey, this this is when we're going to open up. I think it's worth your time either way. Maybe there's a conversation to be had about what can be done for your business, even if we are not the right people to do it. So ajfgrowth.com, that's where everything that I'm doing is ultimately hosted. Of course, you can follow me on X at Andrew J. Ferris. I'd love to talk to you there as well. Thanks so much for watching or listening. I will talk to you next time.